Ajaji, thank you for all the people, all the students who are joining and listening this video after this recording. We are very privileged to have Mr. Yar Hiraj, who is the first pioneer and CEO of OneLoad. Pakistan OneLoad is a Pakistan first independent fintech that has successfully digitalized micro SMEs, which reached over 15 retailers and serving over 6 million customers monthly. Which is very क्या कहते हैं, achievable task. Secondly, Yara Sahab has distinct expertise in fintech industry, not only in Pakistan but as a global. Another important fact, important realm of Yara Sahab is he is deeply rooted in academia. He's teaching at different levels. He's engaging with different students. He is also responsible for publishing and working on case studies and research paper related to fintech. So before starting this interview with Yar Sahab, I am recording this interview for the Muhammad Ali Jinnah University, who is the first pioneer in Pakistan, Karachi, who launched BS Fintech, designated program for specifically for the fintech. तो the main question arises for the undergrad students के हम किस तरह से जो है अपना कैरियर जो है वो स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं फिनटेक में. ऑब्वियसली दे आर अंडरग्रेड स्टूडेंट्स, उनका प्रैक्टिकल एक्सपोजर जो है उस लेवल का नहीं है जो मास्टर्स लेवल का स्टूडेंट्स का होता है. प्लस ये कि दे आर मोर इंटरेस्टेड इन नोइंग के भाई फिनटेक के अंदर स्टार्टअप जो है वो किस तरह से रोल प्ले करते हैं. तो वी लव टू हेयर फ्रॉम यू कि आपका पर्सपेक्टिव क्या है रिगार्डिंग दी फिनटेक कैरियर एंड फिनटेक स्टार्टअप्स.
जी, first of all, thank you, Danish, for having me here.
Thank you.
And I'm delighted to be talking to your class. As it relates to your question, first of all, I think fintech should be looked at the quest for new business models in financial services. So if you look at the world of yesterday or maybe even today, where financial services are mediated through physical interaction, and that is typically in the bank branch model where you sit across the table from somebody and they end up telling you what do they open your account and so on. And so with the advent of digital platforms such as basic telephones and then moving them to smartphones, that interaction no longer really needs to be there in the same manner. And even things like identity verification and having back-end processing such as another identification being accessible through the mobile phone. A lot of the KYC, know your customer stuff can be handled through digital means. And that changes the way people engage with financial services. So fintech as such is the quest for new business models to engage and provide financial services, and also that fundamentally changes the way or the cost related to how you serve people and the method through which you serve people. So for example, in the old days, when the advent of modern banking, where the term bank comes from, people would be sitting on benches in the city of Florence in Italy, and somebody would come and say, I need a loan to finance this venture where I will be sending a ship for trade to Egypt, for example, or wherever. And they would have to find out who that person was, what his net worth was, what collateral he would use, and so on. And what was the risk associated with that ship going to Egypt? Was there a war going on? Would the ship ever return? What was the profitability possible? And so on. Now, they didn't have all that data, and a lot of data was speculative. So we had very little idea of whether storms will come in and so on. So theoretically, in the world of today, the weather systems should be able to tell you how safe a voyage is in a similar circumstances, right? Using technology at all levels. A person no longer needs to come. We're talking about corporate business now. We're not talking necessarily about going to the Kriana store and making a payment with Easy Paisa. We're talking about how the world of finance works, which is to enable and facilitate trade and commercial transactions. And so in that sense, theoretically, you should be looking into a phone, and the phone takes your retinal scan or biometric, and the data on you, on who you are, what you own, what your net worth is, what your trade history is, how much money you have made in previous ventures like this or previous voyages that your ships may have conducted. And then the algorithm should be able to figure out that, okay, at this time of the year with Ukraine war going on, sending a ship to Egypt, how risky is that? And therefore also if it's, climate change is happening and so on. So theoretically, the risk level of that endeavor that is being taken by me, the borrower, can be judged differently. So how you judge risk changes very differently, changes completely from what it used to be in the traditional banking world. Secondly, also, I think if you look at sort of the collateral assessment, in the old days, people would put gold or something as a collateral or their house or so on. In today's world, housing markets also collapse. There is no such thing as something static, right? Even gold fluctuates in price, which in the old days was the standard for wealth. And now gold also trades and changes, and correlation between gold and US dollars also changes. It's not static. So there is no such thing as a fixed value or a fixed wealth metric. So how do you then actually create a collateral? And that is the other task that something like a fintech can provide. So fintechs generally around the world are looking for new ways to change the banking world and to change the world of commerce and trade and change the way risk is managed, assessed, and driven. And of course, all trade is based on risk and automation, on the combination of those two. Now, so I think that is fundamentally what the quest of fintech is about, which is to use data, use technology, use algorithms to determine the various components of the financial system. Payments, which is often seen as sort of the core basic mechanism through which fintech activity is measured, is actually just the starting point typically. Right? Really, what we are trying to enable in the world of finance is commerce, supply chain, and business enablement, and trade and tijarat for us in Pakistan, for Muslims. Trade has been considered a fundamental, an important way for people to make their living, and trade comes inherently with risk. In the old days, people would take, caravans, and they would take people to protect them and protect their goods across from one country to the next, and so on. So having said that, I think now, coming to your other question on how are we in the next generation, how are some of these things being looked at? So within the banking world itself, the State Bank in Pakistan made a sort of requirement that there should be a chief digital officer. And the chief digital officer should be not only automating payments and so on, but should also be looking at various ways of how to change the model of banking to incorporate more and more fintech type activities. And that is something that is a regulation driven. As a result, almost every bank now has a digital silo, which typically reports directly to the CEO. In some cases, it reports to chief operating officer also. But now that's a requirement. What that means is that typically most banks actually have these units where they are looking to consider new business models, look at how to interact with fintechs, work towards open banking. And I'm very happy and pleased to after having interviewed all 5 new digital bank license holders, as well as 5 traditional banks, existing banks, on what they are doing in their digital initiatives very recently. It's actually quite amazing how far the industry has come over the last 2 years or so since COVID ended. And so I think as far as career opportunities is concerned, I think many traditional banks now actually have these departments or divisions or units which operate very differently than the rest of the bank, where they are encouraging people or younger people to participate and contribute more. And that was not the case 5 years ago. Before COVID, that concept just didn't exist. Even if the State Bank had mandated that you hire a chief digital officer, it took people some time to get moving in that direction. Secondly, as it relates to the fintech industry, also Pakistan has seen a very vibrant fintech industry, also partly driven by changes in regulation and partly driven by the availability of venture capital that was there in 2021 after COVID. So the regulation changes, the State Bank came up with new rules and regulations, and the SCCP also started giving licenses for non-banking finance institutions, which initiated a lot of data and behavior-based companies to come about and start plugging into the banking system. And then the State Bank previously came up with branchless banking licenses about 15 years ago, approaching 18 years ago now, which led to the creation of Easy Paisa and Jazz Cash and so on. And then PSO, payment service organizations, which eventually OneLink was regulated under that, which is an interbank ATM network. Started out as an interbank ATM network. And so, and then followed by the electronic money institution licensing. So you have a lot of EMI companies also, which are licensed. And of course, you have the new digital bank licenses as well. And all of these companies typically, and these regulations are typically hiring a lot of people, and they are not looking for people who are going to sit around and do paperwork. They're looking for people typically who are eager to do new things and eager
innovative
to
ideas.
Innovative ideas. And so they want people who are open and who are excited about the space. And frankly, banking in Pakistan was a very boring industry until changes come around.
Absolutely.
I'll stop here. I mean, I hope this answers some of your question.
Thank you so much, sir. I know you are very much busy, but thank you on behalf of my student and from me कि आपने इतना भी time निकाला. लेकिन thank you so much for insightful information. We look forward to engage you again, hopefully.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Take care. Allah Hafiz.